Welcome back to the Lunch Ladies podcast. Today we are talking about education. A lot of us in this podcast are members of the IB program, the International Baccalaureate program. We go to an IB supported high school in Texas, and today we want to talk about some of the advantages and disadvantages of being in the IB program and how that stacks up to other ways of schooling, both in the U.S. and internationally. So let's start out by talking about the IB program and a little bit of what it is and how we feel about it.
So the IB program offers a little bit different classes than your normal setting. We have a class called Theory of Knowledge, which delves into how we know anything, why we know anything, and how we really don't know anything about a lot of areas of knowledge.
Basically a philosophy class.
Pretty much.
Worse.
Stupid philosophy.
And another class we have that sort of differs within other school systems is we have sort of a study hall, both in the first semester of our first year as juniors and the second semester of our senior year. And this sort of allows us to gauge time management in this program, work on things such as our extended essay, which is a 4,000-word research paper that we have to do over the course of 2 years.
There's also an integrated CAS program, which stands for Community, Active, and Service, and it encourages IB students to get out into their community, and rather than only focusing on schoolwork and academics, it allows students to explore different areas of community service, active activities, or creative activities to sort of broaden their spectrum of interests.
Did you say CAS?
Yes.
It's an
Just the
acronym.
acronym.
CAS, Creative, Active, and
Service.
Service.
All right. And do you actually do anything in said study hall period? Because I forgot y'all had that.
Yeah. Okay, well, the thing is like,
We haven't had it in about a year.
yeah.
But when we did it, we had weekly
We're gonna
goals.
have it next semester because this semester we have theory of knowledge.
But with
And then it
that,
switches over.
with that study hall comes with a lot more assignments and grade-related work that comes from CAS experiences.
Such as weekly goals in which the students describe their goals for the week and kind of gauge what they want to do with their time, and then you submit it to the teacher, and it's more of a completion grade. However, it allows the students to gauge how they're going to spend the time in the week and what goals they want to accomplish. And so
Well, the CAS experiences, they're a completion grade for the class, but you have to have them for IB. So it's mainly just to help all of us actually do them.
To
Because
keep us
most
locked in.
IB schools, they don't have independent study, and CAS and the EE are like all done on their own time. Whereas we actually have a class to help us.
Independent study is not an IB thing.
One of us should explain a little bit more about the EE.
Well, before I go into that, this podcast is part of our CAS experience in which we have a project over the course of 2 years that has to span the length of a month. And you have to start it on your own and finish it on your own. You have no...
Well, you don't actually have to finish it.
Oh, that is true.
You can start it and then show that you've actually tried to do
Complete
it.
it as a work in progress.
Yeah. And
The main
Yeah.
thing is they want
Yeah.
you to initiate a project by yourself. And that is what we're doing with this.
I mean, if you're already accepted in A&M, what does it matter?
Well, because on your application you check are likely to graduate with an IB degree.
Diploma,
So
yeah.
IB
And that-
diploma, yeah.
If
And
you don't
that's-
finish, you don't get your IB diploma.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't do
Oh.
it, you don't get it.
I
Are
mean,
they
you
gonna-
still have a good GPA, and
Well,
Yeah,
the thing
but
is
you're a smart
okay,
boy.
basically,
Then your college credits.
the only reason
transfer.
IB actually matters is if you want to get into a higher level school, then if you check that, I mean, you're more likely to get in, but also, I think they look at more scholarships too, like the sooner you get to getting your diploma, so you can get more scholarship money from whether or not you're actually an IB graduate. Plus, I mean, really the only reason people do this is just to get the actual diploma and hang it up on your wall and then forget about it and let it collect dust for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's the thing.
The only
though.
benefit I find in IB is skipping all the college classes in college. Like, because we don't have to take like a whole 2 semesters worth of classes.
Also,
maybe even more.
the
because of our
tests
credit.
the tests are scored a lot more like holistically,
Mhm.
and the classes are also better in general because you learn more about the wider world, which matters more in college, especially if you're going out of state or even out of country for like grad school or something, which we're going to be talking about later.
Mhm.
And also, I mean, the tests in general are scored out of 7 instead of 5, and they're put on a bell curve, so they make a lot more sense in terms of like if the average on a test is a 3, it's basically the average is basically a 4 or something like that. So everyone gets graded easier basically.
And that's one of the things that I find more valuable in IB than I do the AP courses, because with an AP course, whether or not you earn college credit is all defined on one test that you take at the end of the year. So that's an off day, or if you're a bad tester, or for some other reason you bomb that test, all the work you put into that year was for nothing, and you don't get any credit. But with IB courses, it's a different, everything's compiled. There's essays that you write here, and oral exams that you give here, and written tests that you take here, and that everything in that area is sort of average, and then that depends whether or not you get college credit. So if you're not a good test taker, then you can put a little bit more effort into oral exams and written essays, and that can kind of give you a little bit of fluff.
Well, the only problem I still have with IB is like that's true, but in reality, the only two things that give you college credit are your independent assessment or your IA and your test. So it's only an
Yeah.
average between those two. So
Some of our IB classes don't even have like actual tests at the end.
right.
Like
So-
history, we don't have a test for that. That's what our history teacher said. In film, we don't have a test.
So there's still a lot of problems with what I'd like to see in high schools eventually is just more of a system that works like college. Like you need to start college stuff sooner because college, I mean, your final exam matters a lot, but with IB and AP, really it's still the same. Like in IB, your final exam is 50% of your entire grade essentially, because that's all that matters for getting actual college credit. But in college, it's like 20% of your semester grade, right? So I think it needs to work a little bit more like that because you can still have an off day, and even if your IA gets like a 6, but you get like a 2 or 3 on your test, you still may not get college credit.
That's not
So
normal.
there's still a huge problem with that.
That's not normal school works, right? Because all your finals are just 20% of your grade.
Yeah, which is just how college works too. I mean, there's no huge test at the end that defines whether or not you get credit for that course.
Unlike the AP course.
Or IB. IB is the same way as AP, really.
Especially since IB, the main claim to the IB program is that it prepares the students for college. And so that's a good point that you bring up, because if it's supposed to prepare kids for college, college isn't dependent on one big test at the end of the course. And IB kind of is.
Well, that's the thing with college, or not college, high school in general. A lot of your grade point average is dependent on a test, and with AP classes, the AP class is geared towards teaching what will be on the test, whereas IB is very closely related to that. However, they try to incorporate a more holistic approach to their teachings, not only teaching what will be on the test, but also teaching miscellaneous things that you might need to know.
And I have noticed that the IB classes usually don't teach to a test as much as AB courses do, and that's a bit of fresh air.
Yeah.
Yeah, because even last year, as good as our history teacher was, it still felt like we were only learning things that were specifically on the test, and we were, because we did assessments where you just memorize, like rote memorization of facts and people and events in history because they were going to be on the test, and they were on the test. So, yeah, I mean, IB is a matter of just learning things in general, like you will for college, and AP is learning things that you're going to be tested on. So IB is a step in the right direction, but the thing is, it's not even halfway there in my opinion. Like there needs to be a huge revamp if they really want it to be an all-encompassing program that prepares you for college, because what it needs to turn into is literally basically pre-college. Like it needs to be like you're in college, but you're not in college.
Junior college?
Yeah, and that way, but
Well,
you don't have to waste time in between high school and college. Junior college is you graduate high school, you get your high school diploma, you go to junior college for 2 years to get credit, and then you go to a 4-year.
And that transitional period between high school and college is as smooth and as short as possible.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so even if the program was like a little bit harder, but if it was less geared towards just a final test you take and a single paper that you write,
Or a final presentation that you give.
right, then it would be a lot better, because as much as teachers and people in the program try to proclaim that it's like the be all end all, it's not. And I mean, like I said, there just needs to be a revamp or some new program to come along that would just be more like literally college and high school, because a lot of students are prepared for that. Like it wouldn't be that bad. And if teachers would be, the problem is too, is teachers would have to be committed. So you'd have to find basically professors that would be willing to teach the course. So, I mean, teachers would have to get a pay raise. You'd have to be more rigorously certified. So it'd be a huge process, but it'd be worth it, in my opinion.
It's not just what, like, community colleges, like, Blinn and all that.
Yeah, but that's not the point, Mason.
Yeah.
The point is you're not wasting 3 years, like, in between. Because the thing is if you're going from high school to college to a 4-year, right, and you're going to get a degree, you know you're going to get a degree. That's your plan. Okay, you have a 3-month summer period, then boom, you're back into school. Community college, okay, you have a 3 or 4 month period in summer. You can do whatever you want, make some plans. You go to community college for normally like 2 years if you want to go like pre-engineering for A&M, but you don't have the credentials. Okay, you graduate from that, you get like a basic diploma that certifies that you're ready. Then you wait another 3 to 4 months to enter another college that you have to apply for separately. So that's just like 8 months total wasted in summertime. That's like 1 or 2 years wasted at community college. Then you're going to a 4-year.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you just have a lot of that in high school, especially the last 2 years of high school, then it'd be more efficient.
Well, what I find beneficial leading into a 4-year education such as college with the IB program is, while the content is not necessarily geared toward a 4-year college, the workload is specifically what they try to focus on. And that's what a lot of people don't really understand when they go into it, is what the workload is going to be like. Because me personally, I feel like the IB diploma or the IB program has prepared me for the upcoming years at college based on how much workload we have, our time management skills we have acquired, be it a little bit or a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of one of the benefits of IB, is not only does it shape your education, but it also shapes you as a person in a little bit. Because it shapes how you study, it shapes how you view tests, and it shapes your speaking ability. Like, previously to IB, I definitely would not have been as comfortable speaking in this sort of way.
Especially like in the presentations we do for IB. Like I always sucked at those, but after a couple of them in English, I just got used to it, and I didn't really care about what people thought about me when I spoke out in front of them or anything.
Mm-hmm. So in that aspect, IB, there are aspects of IB that improve you in a more they improve you in a more responsibility focused way rather than only focusing on academics. It's clear that IB strives to make its students more responsible and more independent.
Yeah. Another thing I've noticed too with the efficiency aspect of IB is not enough people recognize it. And I feel like even at our own school, people are like, oh, what, IB is just glorified AP. I mean, it is, but it isn't, because I think the
IB
main
is
thing
like on a completely different level.
Yeah, people don't
like
take-
some people don't understand. Like when people ask me like what I'm taking in high school, I'm like, I'm taking IB, and they're like, what's that? And I'm just like, you know what AP is? And they're like, yeah, and I'm like, well, it's like that, but a lot more intense and a lot more essays and just a lot more college type stuff, and they still just compare it to AP.
Yeah, people throw it in the same category as AP, and I kind of find that as a problem, because if you look at a school system like Germany, you decide what you want to do in elementary school, which that's another debate by itself, because whether or not that's a good thing. Personally, I don't think that's a good thing.
I don't
I
either.
don't think so
And-
either.
And it may even be a little later. It may be, our equivalent to 6th grade, that you essentially decide what you want to go into, because after that you apply for like one of 3 schools. You can go to a gymnasium, which is like either engineering focused or science focused, and it's essentially teaching you research, or you can go to basically a mechanic school, so you get hands on like right off the bat. I mean,
Like a
you can
trade
be
school.
in 7th grade, you can go to a trade school essentially, and so they're gearing you up from when you're in 7th grade to go to the workforce, which that's incredibly efficient. And if you look at a country like Germany, oh, why is Germany not in crippling debt? Why is Germany successful economically, and why are they successful in terms of global trade? It's a lot to do with the education system,
And how they prepare their workforce.
right? And it's actually beginning to be a problem there, because what's happening is not as many people are wanting to go into trade as they used to, and so there's a lot more jobs than there are people in Germany now, because 20% of the population is 65 or over, and they're the second oldest country in the world in terms of demographically. Like, they're right behind Japan, and so what's happening is people are going into more just like science and research fields, and so they're in school for a lot longer. People in Germany are in school up to when they're 30 years old. And here, if you're becoming a medical doctor, you're getting your doctorate degree, it's normal to be in school till you're, 28 or 30. But most people graduate with a bachelor's, which is, 4 years, you're out when you're 25 and you're in the workforce. But there, people normally strive for a higher education even than what we do here. And so they're in the workforce for such a long amount of time that they're just in internships, and by the time they're in the workforce, I mean, they're really old.
They're too efficient for their own good, basically.
Yeah.
There's sort of a similar problem that happens in Barcelona, and I guess Spain in general. They value higher education so highly that there's so many people in Spain who want to be engineers and doctors, and not enough of them want to be janitors and plumbers and mechanics. So there's a bunch of people spending a lot of money and a lot of time to be engineers and doctors, and not enough jobs to go around. So there's a bunch of people with high ranking degrees and no jobs to show for it.
Yeah, we could get into the ethics of and morality of even using robots to those jobs, because what a lot of people say is, oh, it's unethical, it's immoral to use robots on jobs. But I mean, the fact is, if Europe as a continent is more work focused and more academically focused than the United States is. United States still live in kind of work hard, play hard type of attitude. Europe's more kind of just like work hard and focus, and that's it. They're very serious people, especially Western Europe, very focused. And so, if you can replace a lot of those low-level jobs with robots or something similar, why not?
Yeah.
Because you'll open up a workforce so people can study to become, further the human race. Because in essence, I mean, if you can get rid of janitors and, mechanics, I mean, it's sad to say, but who cares?
But not everyone has the mental capacity to be
And that's-
engineers and doctors and surgeons.
That is another thing too.
So what do you do
because,
about them?
Yeah, you have to think of that, and so that's a lot of people's argument. And I honestly don't have a solution. I mean, would
I
you
don't think
would you
anyone
fast
does.
track everyone into a research field or something higher, or would you keep them in school longer to further their educational process? I mean, I don't know.
The thing is like, does eugenics like play in that? Because like they're smart people breed with smart people, and they birth a smart
Right.
child. It's like now they're developing superior genes.
Hmm.
Like if you threw a bunch of Americans in the mix, you're gonna get some dumb people.
Yeah, and I think I mean, yeah, it's to do with genetics, and it's to do with the country and their attitude as a whole, and it's. I mean, we have gene editing software now. I mean, we can literally edit people's genes before they're born. And so, is that
Yeah.
can you do something with that? Can you make everyone scientifically minded? And what happens if you do that?
Well, I think a lot of this is based off of really big generalizations. Like what we started out with, Europe is a lot more work centered. I mean, I'm sure to an extent that's true. I don't know for sure, but just because it's true on a wide scale doesn't mean it's going to be true everywhere across Europe.
Yeah,
The building blocks of the universe is based on generalization. Am I wrong?
that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't generalize,
Yeah.
then you get too specific. And you can see the effects of whether or not Europe is a smarter continent. I'm putting this in quotes than North America is, because I mean, you can see it in our politics. I'm not going to get into the politics and everything, but I mean, America is normally generalized by Europe and just by people in America, just as Americans are being stupid. And I don't know if that's a good flag to put us under or what.
I don't think it is.
Yeah, I don't either, because then if you start generalizing, then you put everyone under a category, and to an extent, it makes them think in the way that you put them in the category that they're under.
Mm-hmm.
And so back on the robots replacing jobs, I think that it would be good to manufacture these robots so that way they are available, say, in the case of Germany or Spain, where people don't have as many openings, or there are too many openings within the lower fields, such as janitorial work, such as fast food management. You could fill those in with the robots, and that way you kind of provide a balance based on if there aren't enough, or if there are too many openings, sorry, within a specific job field, you can fill those gaps.
I mean, we've already started. Just look at the
Mhm.
Roomba. Like,
Exactly.
we've already filled in jobs. I mean, very simplistic jobs, but and now you're talking about the morality.
To digress, conversations like this are a lot of what our theory of knowledge class in IB is focused on. We focus a lot on a worldview and looking and analyzing a different perspectives, and that's what TOK, in my mind, that's the goal of making students take a TOK class, because it encourages this holistic global view, and it encourages students to look at things from as many different perspectives as they can to analyze the ethicality and morality of things. So that's another advantage that the IB program possesses. It it teaches its students to be not only academically smart and responsible, but also to be globally smart and considerate of other people's perspectives and other different perspectives in ethics and morality.
Open-minded. But that's because all your life you've been working on your intelligence. Now you have TOK, philosophy, and now you're working on your wisdom.
Well, I think everyone should be forced to go into an academic program that forces you to have an open mind.
Of course.
Because
Yeah.
every systemic form of racism and injustice in this world is caused by a symptom of closed-mindedness. Is you can't see the perspectives that other people have in relation to you as a person. Because if you can't see the world through other people's eyes, specifically your peers, especially when you're a young person, then you're not going to be a good person when you grow up, because you're not going to be able to see. I mean, the older you get, the harder it is to change. That's been proven by science. I mean, literally, you're so much more influenced by other people's actions at a younger age. So something in turn like IB needs to be brought even further down into the system. It doesn't need to be under necessarily the guise of IB, but it needs to be something that just encourages students to just have a more open mind to where they can grow as people earlier in life rather than later.
Well, and that's the thing with IB is you start when you're a junior, and ever since we have been in it, we are seniors currently, and they have sort of brought it down, like you said, down to the freshman level in high school.
With pre-IB.
Exactly, and
Yeah, but the pre-IB thing is just a label that they're putting. It's not actually any IB courses or anything. It's just pre-AP classes.
It's not.
exactly.
I have a huge problem with pre-IB because
I do too.
it's closing the doors on students who want to get into the IB program.
How so?
You have to have requirements now to get into pre-IB.
You have to write an essay too.
Yes, you have to write an essay to
What?
get in pre-IB, and then you have to have
Yeah.
requirements to get in IB itself.
And
so now, like, there's
we got accepted just because we said we wanted to be in it.
That
Exactly.
defeats the purpose.
and
of
so
IB.
the point that
That's
I was
really
making,
stupid.
the point that I was making just like a minute ago is now falsified by this claim, and the way IB claims to be open-minded and holistic is completely mitigated by what they're trying to do.
I don't know if it was IB that did this. I
It
think
may
was
be our school.
I think it was our school that
It
did
might have
because they saw like the grades and everything, and they wanted to make sure that we only got good
Well, that's another
Good
problem
grades.
because
from
keeping
the
kids
people
in
that are
IB,
in IB.
pardon. Keeping kids in IB is expensive, and I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to minimize the risk of students dropping out of IB because they realize it's either too strenuous or it's just not for them, and that costs a lot of money that
Okay.
they're going to lose.
Okay, but not giving them the chance to try is wrong.
Right.
Exactly.
right.
I think we're on the same page.
I have
there.
a lower GPA than probably anybody in IB, so I would have been cut first. Okay, I would not have been given the chance to stay in IB. Excuse my
Yeah,
stuttering.
and I agree with you fully.
But I have stayed in over people who have higher GPAs than me, and I think it's helpful.
Because it's still valuable to you, and you see the values that IB poses, and cutting that off at some arbitrary number.
Yeah.
That's
And the values that IB teaches includes self-awareness, essentially. And if you're not self-aware enough to realize that you can't do IB, then you don't need to do it. You need to know as a person whether or not you're going to try IB, whether or not you can do it. And then if you're in the program and you can't do it, then you can get out yourself,
exactly.
right? And so closing the doors on people is not the answer.
It's not, and it's gonna cost you money. But would you rather save money or help teach kids valuable life skills that they're gonna use later on, like being self-aware and being responsible enough to make the decision and say, this program isn't for me.
Yeah, and
Because that's always a hard decision to make.
And-
And yeah, that's gonna lose you money, but
And so another thing too is why is our school just degrading this into an academically focused program? Because that's all anyone ever tries to do with programs nowadays. It's just you have to have a certain GPA to get in here because
The
we
only-
want to look good on the state map. We want to look good for
The only
colleges.
thing they really care about is the test scores and the diplomas.
Yeah,
that you
whether or
get.
not you get a diploma, whether or not your GPA is high enough, and whether or not you do good on your test scores. That's literally all they care about.
which defeats the entire purpose of what makes IB worth doing.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
otherwise, it's just a glorified AP, and I think that's the reason why people think AP is a glorified IB, or that IB is a
The other way
glorified
around,
AP, because
Mhm.
because a lot of school districts boil IB down to the basic bare bones academics, which
It's
goes
not.
against every tenet of IB and what everything IB is supposed to be.
Schools just feed their ego, basically. Like, if you don't have enough kids scoring high on an AP test, they'll fire the teacher. It could just be the students. Like, you could just have a really undercooked batch of cookies, you know? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Education has lost focus. It's always about getting the scores so you can get to the next level, whether
Mhm.
it's high school, then college, then your job. It's never about
Learning.
the
It's all about the labels now.
Yeah, and it's even worse in Europe, especially in Germany, because I was talking with my German teacher on Friday. We were talking about it, and what they do in Germany is it's horrible. Really, I mean, it's scary. I wouldn't want to go to school in Germany because, like I already laid out, they basically have to pick their career path from 5th to 7th grade. You decide what you want to do in life. I mean, it's pretty broad, right? Do you want to be an engineer? Do you want to be a scientist? But like, I did not have the mental capacity at that time to pick what I wanted to do.
How flexible is that system?
Not very.
Well, that's another thing too, is especially, at least with our school, with the pre-IB system, you're going from middle school as an 8th grader into your freshman year of high school, which is already a big enough jump as it is between the sizes and everything. And you're trying to force them to make a decision as to whether they want to attend a higher level class that they don't even know anything about. That's another thing is, when we went into it, we didn't know what it was going to be like. We had heard from some of the people who had already done it that it was a lot of work, that you had to do this, you had to do that. But you don't really get the magnitude of what it is until you've done it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a big thing.
back on Germany, it's like that. Like, you have to be, like, ready to do what you want
Right.
when you start, like a little worker ant, because there's so many brilliant minds there.
That's the culture.
The competition is straight out the gate that you have to, like, be ready.
You have to. And another thing is where I was going with that
Get caught in the
is
dust.
that at the end year, the final year of high school in Germany, you take tests basically to see where you're going to go to college. It's even worse than here. Essentially, you take one test that determines where you go to college. And let's say you want to go on the pre-medical route. Well, there is no pre-medical route in Germany. As soon as you're in college, you are in medical school. Therefore, your credentials from your senior year of high school have to qualify you to go to medical school right off of the bat. So you take one test your senior year of high school, and if you score high enough, you can go to medical school. If you don't, you pick another major and you go to another college. So let's say you want to go to college in Cologne. They have the best medical school in Germany. This is a hypothetical. And so your score is not high enough to go to the medical college in Cologne. So you have to defer to another scientific route somewhere else. And what students do is they do that on purpose, and then they try to switch into the medical program when they're in college. So here it's like switching majors, But there it's even more strenuous because you're switching from a major right into medical school itself, not pre-med, not your first 4 years of college, into medical school. And you're a doctor after 4 years of college.
That's crazy.
That's wow.
Like
Yeah.
you're already entrusted with another person's
Yes.
life straight out the gate.
Right out of senior year of high school.
Something that be doesn't seem that bad.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's because the culture in the United States isn't that academically strenuous.
Speaking
Yeah.
of culture, I'd like to talk about the sort of local culture that IB is bred into in our school. I noticed that with a lot of the IB students, because IB is focused so heavily on your grades, and you take students that are already festering at the idea of rank and GPA average, GPA, it breeds this hyper competitive hive mind personality that is totally destructive, both socially and later academically. Because colleges,
They don't.
after admissions, they don't really give a crap about
Mhm.
your rank, and for your friends don't really give a crap. And if all you ever talk about is the grades, the ranks, and the GPAs of you and other people in your grade, that's gonna stunt you socially. Because after high school, none of that matters.
Exactly.
And if all you focus on is grades, after high school, what are you gonna do now? It's just setting you up for this crash and burn situation.
It's like what do you call the last guy in his class in medical school? A doctor.
Hmm.
And I don't know if it's the fault of IB or
I think it's
the
the
way our
students.
school handles IB, or even just the fault of the people in it. But
I
it
think it's
breeds
the people.
I think it's all three.
it breeds this borderline toxic personality trait where everything about you is eat, sleep, breathe IB in school. And it's just depressing to watch.
Well,
The
no,
amount of times I've been asked what my GPA is and what my rank is insane.
That should be private
and it's so
information.
annoying because like I tell people like I don't like to tell people that, and they're like, oh,
So
It must be low.
Yeah. Oh, it's low. Oh,
It's,
I'm like-
also an issue.
I'm just not gonna argue because I don't care.
It's also an issue of privacy because I've heard people pull out other people's ranks and grade point averages out of thin air. And
Yeah.
that's supposed to be private classified information between a student and their counselor. And the fact that people are able to deduce that kids do deduce other people's ranks to see who's ahead of them and who's behind them, that's scary. That's borderline psychotic.
well, and that's the thing though too is I hang around the people we are podcasting with right now, but I also hang around the people who are top
Losers.
10 in the class,
Oh my god.
and I mean my rank is not that bad, but I often find myself not wanting to reveal what that is based on the gap, even if it's slight, between where I am and what the number 1 person is, what the number 9 person is. And I don't know, it hasn't deterred a lot of friendships, but it has negatively impacted them in some way as they care more about it than they should or that we do.
Then is reasonable.
Of
And
course, because when your friendships boil down to an arms race of rank, of course feelings are gonna get hurt.
Yeah, what I've noticed, I'm pretty high up, right?
Yeah.
And people know that because I've revealed it myself because I've wanted to. People have asked, and I say it. I don't care because, I mean, some people get mad because y'all know me. I'm not a hyper competitive person. I'd say I'm not even a competitive person at all. That's not my mentality. I'm pretty introverted unless I'm around friends. That's just who I am. And
Me
I'm not a person that cares a lot. I don't care so much about my grades that it affects me negatively. And people hate that about me because
Mhm.
Yeah,
I'll
it
tell
looks
them
like
my
you don't
rank
care.
and I'll tell them my GPA. And they kind of get pissed because they're behind me. Okay, and I know they're behind me because they've said it because everyone's so open about this. And they get mad because they see me and they're like, "Oh, you don't try. You only studied the night before the tests."
yeah.
Right? And
I'm
I'm like,
better than you.
I don't
like-
care.
That one girl, she asked you what your rank was.
Yeah,
and
there
I
was a situation where a student in the IB program came up to me
Man.
and she asked me, how are you ranked so highly? It looks like you don't even try. and I don't remember telling her my rank.
I've gotten that so much.
Yeah,
And
that's why I just don't tell people my rank.
It just
'cause
irks
I don't
me.
want them to know.
I feel like a lot of that's one of the major disadvantages of IB because it's not
Yeah.
entirely at the fault of IB, but IB encourages this negative personality trait where everything you do is eat, sleep, breathe, school.
It's groupthink.
It's groupthink.
It's like,
And like,
you have to have a certain.
it's an arms race of how
Yeah.
smart a number declares you are, and it makes other people feel insignificant. It makes other people feel bad, and it makes other people not want to talk to you when all you do is school and all you talk about is school. I hang out. IB is a very stressed. IB has a lot of work on students, and that can be managed. That's part of what we're doing right now. Is my favorite part about hanging out with friends is it offers a break from all the school and all the work that we have and the projects we have, and it's fun to decompress. It's fun to mess around with my friends and have fun talking about other things. But when you don't have that and all you talk about is school, that can't be good for you mentally, and it's going to come back to bite you in the butt later.
Well, that's the thing too, is what we've been talking about is how much of a workload IB is and all of that. But it's not too much to where the students are not encouraged to participate in extracurricular activities, such as I am in track. Some other of us are in cross country, in theater, in band, things of that sort. And
It's not the same thing.
No one's in band.
orchestra, my bad.
Not here. Band sucks.
Anyway, so while IB is a lot of work, the students are encouraged to participate in these extracurricular activities. And the teachers recognize that. They will often assign less work, slightly less, when they know a big event is coming up. Things of that nature.
That depends a lot on the teachers and the students, though, because not
Exactly.
every teacher is going to be that understanding, and not every student is going to be that well equipped to not only do all the work that IB provides, but also to pursue an extracurricular. Because I'm in theater, and whenever we have a play, oftentimes after rehearsals, we don't get home until 7:30 or 8 in the evening, and that doesn't give us a whole lot of time to eat, do homework, get ready for bed, and sleep. So, my grades usually take a bit of a dip whenever there's a play. And for extracurriculars like band or football that take up so much free time, not a lot of kids can do that. And not a lot of kids are well equipped enough to juggle that many responsibilities. And for some people, extracurriculars aren't an option.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here's another issue. Some activities are prioritized over others, such as anything related to football.
Yeah.
Teachers, because, well, everybody knows when football's having a game, so teachers usually don't put tests on those days, but if you're doing something for orchestra or theater
Or
or
cross country.
something people don't
Anything other than
know about.
Football and basketball, but that's also another big flaw within our school.
Well, that's reflected in our calculus class because our teacher, there's 3 of us, 2 or 3 in football in that class, and
There's 2 people in football.
There's 2 people in football in that class, and there's 3 people in cross country in that class. 2 of us which are here.
Yeah.
And anytime there's a football game, the test gets postponed or moved. Anytime there's a cross country meet, it's like, oh, I'll think about it. So why, if we have more numbers in that class, why are we not prioritized more highly than football, which is not even represented as highly as we are?
It's American
Yeah.
culture.
Exactly.
I mean, the same thing would be true back in the old days during baseball, when baseball was very popular.
It's all about the money.
Yeah.
Whatever sport brings in the most money is what's most prioritized by
And that's the thing,
school.
A lot of people don't recognize the lower programs, such as cross country, whose program nobody really knows about it. Not many people know about the meets. Not many people know that there is even a program there. And while that has grown over the years, at least in our school, it's still detrimental to the stress students have based on what sport they choose and what their interests are. And I don't think that's a good thing.
It's like, okay, say that there would be a school that was really good at chess. The school would oh, this is a chess school. It's labels. Yet again, we've come around full circle. It's ego. Like,
Yeah.
What makes a school look best?
I want to go to the chess school.
And that's the thing, though. I guarantee you our school has a chess team, and we don't know about it.
Probably.
Yeah.
I didn't know we had a golf team until I joined.
A lot of
Exactly.
people
I didn't know
know-
we had cross country team until sophomore year when
Yeah.
Nathan told me.
A lot of people don't
No,
know we have a
no.
jazz band.
Yeah,
Nobody
I didn't
knows
know
we have
that
a jazz
either.
That's
band.
really good. What's up?
I didn't know about jazz band until last year.
Yeah.
Me
I mean,
either.
that's kind of our fault. We don't really promote it very well.
We
Well,
don't.
but that's not
I mean,
y'all, though.
have
That's
you had
the
like
school,
events
too.
every year though?
2 years.
Yeah.
We've
Yeah.
been going
It's still
for 2
it's still a
years.
relatively new
Okay.
thing.
It's a new expenditure.
Yeah.
Also, though,
But mariachi band is just as new, and they have a lot more publicity.
hmm
Because it's
Texas.
ethnically segregated. Is
Bro-
part of it.
Our
It's
school is
ethnically
60%
relevant.
Hispanic.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
I'm not saying
it makes sense why.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a
mariachi
bad
is-
thing that it's ethnically
Yeah.
segregated.
Our school is majority Hispanic.
Right.
But
so
I feel like we're getting
It
off
makes sense.
topic from
Yeah.
the IB discussion.
Yeah.
we kind of
This is education too.
Oh,
yeah.
right.
I mean, it plays into how students are given time to manage their schoolwork based on the level of popularity of what the schools give it.
I'd like to talk about hearing all of this because there's a lot of information that I didn't know about IB. So I'm learning a lot here as well.
Mhm.
But I am an AP slash pre-AP slash regular slash stupid student. My GPA is not good. I'm really lazy and I kind of have like an inferiority complex about it. I don't really feel good about myself talking about this because y'all talk about this and it's just like a small little gnome looking up the Great Wall of China. It's like, whoa, that's crazy. What's up with that?
Well, that's the thing, though. A lot of high school experiences are based off of just having a good time, being able to leave early your senior year. That's what my mom, that's what my dad have tried to kind of keep me in, making sure I have a good time in high school, which they don't really get the IB program. They don't get how hard it is and how much stress it puts on you and how much of your social life you have to give up for that. And they want, I mean, when they went to school, a lot of their high school time was spent having a good time, hanging out with friends, and they didn't have as much of a workload as we do now. And I don't think that's necessarily the school system or IB necessarily, but it's more so the focus on education throughout the years.
I mean, because time has advanced, school has changed, and another thing with open-mindedness, they're not being as open-minded, and it's
Exactly.
all about labels.
Mm-hmm.
Theme of the day, labels.
Yeah.
Word of the day, ladies and gentlemen.
Label.
Label. Yeah.
I don't
And
know.
so a lot of our parents went to school, 70s, 80s ish.
And what did they do?
What?
Counted with
And-
sticks.
No, my,
Yeah, 70s
Yeah,
to 80s. I'm
I
talking about
said
high
80s,
school through
90s.
college.
oh
Yeah.
yeah.
High school through college, it was
80s to
70s,
90s.
70s to 80s, and in your case, 80s to 90s, because your parents were a bit younger than most of ours are. And so,
That's why they're cool.
there's a whole different mentality, and you can look at socially in the United States how it differs because people put these labels on people. You're a Gen Z or you're a Gen X, you're a millennial, you're a baby boomer, and a lot of us now are putting a lot of this country's social and economic strifes on baby boomers because if you look at the generation of baby boomers, and talking to my dad about this because he's at the very last stage of being a baby boomer. He's 56, and they were lazy. A lot of them in school, he said, I was lazy in school every day after school. You'd go, he lived in Houston, you just go out, hunt and fish, just do whatever you wanted. Like, you literally just do whatever you wanted. There was no, pressure on you externally or anything. And so, you can look at that and see, is that a problem? The workforce now there's hardly anyone in it because, all the baby boomers are retiring. So there's a lot of things socially you can look at from a standpoint of what generation you were born in.
I think that's the thing too. They saw that a lot of that generation was a bit more lazy. Speaking in general, and they tried to advance the school system more or a lot faster based on that to kind of turn the tides on how students were given an education and the workforce they were being prepared for.
Yeah, because back then too, it was a lot more individually focused, and so if you wanted to be a good student, you kind of decided you would be, because your parents didn't care either, because your parents were, each of your parents was working 2 jobs, they were out of the house all the time. You got to drive when you were 14 practically. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and so you were just doing whatever you wanted by the time you were in ninth grade. I mean, that's just how it was. And so,
They didn't even have seatbelts back then.
or air conditioner, dude. That's the main thing.
Okay, that's also another big thing I want to talk about is
Air conditioners.
absolutely no
Seatbelts.
we are all fairly privileged in our wealth, our income, and all that.
That's yeah.
The people who aren't as fortunate as us don't really have the luxury of attending the higher level classes that we do, because they're given the opportunity, but the workload kind of deters them because they're working to support their family. They're working 2 jobs right after school, sometimes even during the school day. Sometimes they have to drop out in order to support their family. And I think that there's not as much you can do necessarily, at least that I think, to keep that, to kind of push them to do better in school and all of that, to gain a higher education. But I just hope that there's a way for the people who aren't as privileged to gain a higher education, to further their income later on in life.
I think that's a very broad, huge discussion about privilege and society.
Yeah, I don't even. That's a whole other podcast.
That's a rabbit hole I don't think I want to go
Let's just not hop in there because you could speak. There's no way to solve it. Period.
Exactly.
Because when people try to do, colleges, I'm just going to go over it shortly. Colleges, give scholarships for minorities. It's obvious when you're filling out your application. Are you Hispanic? Are you Hispanic scholar? All these different things. And so, no matter what you do, you can't fix it because systemically there is no way to fix it because naturally people are segregated. And I'm not talking about segregation in a racist way. I'm just talking about segregation in general. And people are never not going to be segregated because if you're not segregated, it's socialist. It's a complete socialistic society, and that's something you don't want to live in.
I mean, we're pack animals. We stick with what's familiar to us, whether that be racially, socially, economically, or otherwise. That's why you hang out with friends that have like interests. You're segregating yourself from people that you don't have as much things in common with.
Exactly.
Yeah, like our group of friends right here.
Yeah.
We're all white.
Yeah,
that's not a bad thing.
No,
I'm Hispanic. Actually,
you're half white.
You're
half white.
A quarter white.
Anyway,
Alright, you're like a mocha frappuccino. We'll talk later.
Yeah.
And while we do differ in some ways, a lot of our interests line up. Like a lot of us enjoy playing video games. A lot of us enjoy
All of us.
being stupid around each other.
A lot of us want to be engineers growing up.
Exactly.
Stuff like that.
And I don't know how we picked this group. It just kind of happened, and I think that's a really weird thing within society that you find people that you click with that have similar interests in you without really getting to know them first.
Exactly, and the inverse is true. You stay away from people that you don't have a lot in common with, and that's almost biology. Because animals do the same thing.
It is,
and humans are animals.
You can't change that.
Reversing that would be hard to say the least, maybe even harmful.
Well, it would be harmful. You'd essentially be a hive mind. You can't be nice to everyone you meet. You can't be accepting of everyone you meet, and that sounds bad, but it's not. Because if you're accepting as everyone with everyone you meet, you're not going to have best friends. You're not going to have really even good friends. Because
you
just have everyone as a friend.
Right, you're an acquaintance to everyone you see and a friend to none.
And everything is pleasant.
Yeah.
And to relate this back to the IB program, a lot of what we see in our classes is while we are sort of a family, we have kind of gone through a lot of this together and we know each other fairly well, we still separate ourselves based on the groups of people we have things in common with. Like everybody around this table will tend to sit together. We tend to talk within each other, and we don't really open up to other groups as to how we behave, how we act, and all
We're
of
not as
that.
open with other
Exactly.
people.
But like, IB really does sound like a family because do you choose your family members?
No.
Can you remove other people from IB legally?
No.
No.
Oh no.
That's kind of
Well, it's legal if you don't
interesting.
get caught.
This this what do you call it?
Discussion.
No, like
The podcast.
It's a group of friends.
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so this group
Gang.
Click.
All right.
Squad.
This-
This fam.
for this generation
This wolf pack.
of IB students, I feel like there's kind of two different groups because it's gotten a lot bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the people at this table, except for Parker, don't really fit in with like
That other group.
the IB family.
Right, and our class as a whole has influenced the entire school.
Exactly.
Because last year's IB class, to be frank, there was essentially no one in it. No one knew what it was. It wasn't really looked highly upon. Now our class essentially tripled the class size of people in IB. And now next year, the
It's
class
even
under us,
bigger.
the juniors, that is a massive class.
Mhm.
And the pre-IB program, I don't think they want to admit it, but that came as a byproduct of our class being so massive.
Mhm.
Because I think they saw that, like, wow, these classes are getting a little bit too big. We don't want that.
Well, that's another
Yeah.
thing too. We have sort of integrated ourselves within the school, making friends with a lot of people, be it regular AP, pre-AP, people of that sort, and they see how much fun we're having outside of school because
Are we?
honestly we put off a lot of our work,
We do.
I have
and
more fun because I put off more work and I'm not in IB.
exactly.
Boom.
And while
Who's really winning?
Don't do school, kids.
But I'm more depressed.
While time management is a key factor within IB, a lot of people saw that they didn't know that we put off our work. They didn't know that our grades slipped a little bit because of that. They saw that we were having fun. In the class above us, we're all work.
Yeah.
Like I know a lot of the people I interacted with got mad at us for having so much fun.
They did. That was a whole thing.
Mhm.
Like last year when we were juniors, we
Mm-hmm.
had a discussion in our English class about this topic because our English teachers saw that we were having more fun, and then the seniors also saw that last year. And what she said was, apparently, is they got kind of mad because they were incredibly serious about their work. But like, if you're that serious about your work, what's the point? Because all you're doing is just going to go to college.
The class before us was a bunch of socially awkward weirdos.
They kind of were.
No
the class
offense.
now.
It kinda
No
relates to
offense.
The people we were talking about in IB earlier,
No,
they
I
get
know.
mad at us because like our group, we're always the jokesters in
Mhm.
our IB classes because no one else.
People have appropriated us as a friend group, us five. And I'm sorry to not exclude you, Mason.
Because I'm not in
It's
IB.
because
Yeah,
you're not in our
you're
classes.
not
How so?
If
What
you
I
haven't,
was?
we-
Oh my God.
we started the oof trend.
Yeah.
People say oof that are not even associated with our friend group one at all.
Also T-pose. How
Oh, okay.
how we
But
started that.
a lot of these just became memes shortly after we started.
That is true.
Well, notice how every like joke, inside joke, meme, or anything.
So essentially, the point of this sub conversation was our friend group has slowly gotten more accepted, and I don't know if I like that or I dislike that because last year we were socially awkward, I'm sure, from their standpoint because we
Mhm.
were just so cliquish and weird and just.
I think this is a good place to wrap up.
So okay, before we wrap it up, I think we should go around and say, if we had the choice, would we choose to do IB knowing what
Yeah.
what all it entailed?
I think that's a good.
And
Including Mason.
All right.
exactly, and
Like if
if we think changes would help. And so I'll start by saying, if I had known what the IB program was, I had known it was a lot of work, but earlier on, I think I still would have done it just because I pushed myself academically and things of that nature. Zach,
Can you go to Mason?
Mason.
Okay.
I have to think about this.
Let's do him last because I want to
Okay.
hear his opinion last. I'll go next.
All right.
And so, I mean, I've had discussions about this with Kevin and Parker during
And me.
a track meet. We
Yeah.
had like a 2-hour-long discussion. But
Mm-hmm.
I'd do it. I mean, it wouldn't be an easy decision. It would honestly be a lot harder decision than I originally made because I mean,
Absolutely.
knowing everything, it's so much to take in, and you have to realize. I challenge myself as a person. I'm competitive, like introspectively. I'm competitive with myself, not necessarily with other people. So yeah, I do it. I do it again.
I think I don't think I would quit. I think if I were to change anything, I wouldn't go full diploma because it is a lot of work, and I think it's valuable the time management skills that we learn, but high school is a lot more than grades. There's also a huge social aspect that takes a lot of change and a lot of work to adjust with, and there's a lot of personal things that young adults start to deal with, especially in junior and senior year as you grow up and mature and realize different things. And that in itself is hard to deal with. So I think regrettably, not regrettably, I'd still do IB. If I would have to change, I'd only go full diploma. Or I wouldn't go full diploma, but a lot of the advantages that IB offers, we haven't experienced yet because a lot of that comes later in college.
Yeah, it comes after the fact.
TOK has influenced this conversation entirely.
Exactly.
So I think that has been a
But
valuable.
as Mason has proven, that might not be necessary.
Yeah, does it?
Mhm.
But like humans, I'm going off the social thing. Humans as a whole are a social species. We're not like another basic animal. An animal can just like be on its own and
Lone wolf style.
kind of like get with another for like a little bit, a little season,
Mm-hmm.
and then leave, and then be on its own again. Humans on a daily basis interact with each other, and to not have that skill growing up through high school, like middle school, high school, and whatnot. What are you?
Yeah.
You're not a human. You're a robot.
Yeah. For me, whenever like I was told what the IB program was, all I was told is that it was an advanced program and it was better than IB. Like
Same here.
I knew
Better
nothing
than
about
AP.
Better than AP.
better than AP. Yeah, yeah.
Same here.
I didn't know anything about the extended essay, about theory of knowledge, about all the IAs,
Mhm.
They talk like
and the
briefly
orals
about
that you have to do. Or
The
anything
literal
like that.
pillars of IB
Yeah.
and why people.
All I knew was you had to take a foreign language, you had to take sciences, and they were all advanced classes.
They talked about like the TOK in like an essay. I thought.
I
I
didn't
thought
know.
there was like a presentation
It
about it
was
that I saw.
very
they
brief.
just mentioned
I
it.
didn't know what TOK was until we started taking
They
the class.
I
basically
didn't
said
either.
before they said TOK is basically
A philosophy
a
class.
philosophy class
Which
that
is-
IB
And you were like,
forces
oh, that's
you to
cool.
take.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be really interesting, but it's
Mhm.
just like
That's why.
kind of a basic.
So would you do IB or not?
I'd probably do it, yeah,
Zach?
because like
Oh no. Keep going.
I don't know, yeah, just go ahead, Zach.
It's not an easy decision really because it's hard to evaluate the effects right now. I know it has had a positive effect on my social life, I think, contrary to what Mason was saying earlier. I think it's actually made me. I don't know if this is something that came from IB or just something that comes with age, but like I've noticed I've been better at socializing with maybe people that I wouldn't normally socialize with. I talk to people who I never knew, which is something I didn't really do before. I was very quiet. Another thing is like speaking my mind around people that I don't really know. Like recently I've just been like telling people how it is,
Which is feel like that sometimes.
which is something that I'm not used to doing. Normally I'm scared of what people are gonna think of me. I'm a scared. Is that my Italian showing? I'm conscious about like making people mad at me or making people not like me, but
It's less important.
Mhm.
Don't.
yeah, it's less important than it was.
Now you're woke.
But the other aspect of IB, the whole academic aspect, I don't know if I would do it for that because I I don't like the whole culture of it seems like you have to go into higher education in order to be successful. Like the concept of success in American society is completely based on wealth, or maybe not even wealth, but just how much prestige your job title has. And maybe success should be based more on happiness, you know?
Intrinsic value.
Yeah.
Intrinsic
Mm-hmm.
value. If I can live working in a fast food restaurant for the rest of my life, making minimum wage,
But be happy.
but be happy, I'd rather do that, than become a doctor and have to.
Hate it. Money can't buy happiness.
Yeah.
There are two different pieces of literature that I would compare that to. Number one, Death of a Salesman, because in that book, all what they care about, the characters, is being well liked and being successful in like wealth kind of standpoint. And then another is Christmas Carol. Is that what it is?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Where the poor people, they were still happy. Little boy Timmy was messed up, but he was still having fun with his papa. But what's his name? Grinch?
Scrooge.
Scrooge man? Scrooge.
Ebenezer Scrooge.
That's the one. He wasn't happy, but super wealthy.
Yeah.
I mean, he could buy a big turkey, but was he happy? No. So that's like another thing.
That turkey wasn't happy either.
I feel like I've been placed in this situation where it's like I have to go into IB and I have to go to college because from elementary and middle school, like, I was just naturally kind of better at math and writing and stuff. But, like, maybe that's not what I want to do.
And that's the thing, though.
Just
too.
because I can do it, it doesn't mean
You're happy
I
doing
have to.
IB is a breeding system
it. Mhm.
for college.
Yeah.
I don't know what their philosophy is, but it seems like the assembly line philosophy. You are a missile on that little thing. What is it called?
Conveyor belt.
That's it. Being pushed along, and then once you're ready, you get shot off into the world. Like,
Yeah.
And I think IB just provides a few extra feet of that conveyor belt, but it's not really enough
Kind of
to.
sets up like half the launch pad, but then the other half is like decided by you. So if you only have half of it set up, you're still gonna like blow up.
you could be a faulty missile. You could
Yeah.
not blow up,
Mm-hmm.
or you could blow up prematurely.
Yeah.
But like,
I don't know what that means.
Does that mean like you peak in like 6th grade?
you
I think I'd
Yeah,
peak.
no, people peak at their senior year of high school.
Yeah.
It's kind of depressing if you think about it.
Depressing.
Because and a lot of people that do that are the people that are at the top of their class. Because my dad had a few people like that at his high school. He went to a pretty big high school, and he had people that were third, fourth in their class. He said, I mean, he didn't know their exact rating, but he knew they were high up, right? And they went to college on a scholarship, not full ride but full tuition, and I mean they burned out sophomore year. They dropped out of college. I mean, you don't really know what happened to them next. And I'm not saying that it was a bad thing that they dropped out. Maybe they found their calling, but I don't know. So
Yeah.
I think I'm peaked in middle school. I haven't had
peaked in elementary.
all A's since 8th grade.
I honestly, God, I think I peaked freshman year.
I don't know.
I don't
Maybe
know.
that was a mini peak. Maybe I'll peak again in college.
I peaked in.
Let's look on the
Would
positive
you do
side.
if you could go back
Yeah.
to sophomore year? Would you?
would you do
Alright,
no
IB?
no IB, diploma IB, or certificate IB?
I think I do diploma.
Mason.
I'm not gonna expand
I mean,
on that because I already did.
Yeah, you already did.
I feel like only really get the classes that, like, of like what you want to do. Like, if you want to be an engineer, you're gonna need those math classes. So you don't really need history.
Mhm.
I need to know the history of engineering. No, shut up, stupid. But
You can learn history on your own.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
like a
Every
lot
single
more.
history teacher just clenched.
I mean, I feel like a lot of like problems with teaching as well is just like these are people with failed dreams having to fall back
Yeah, I
on
get that.
teaching.
Teaching-
Yeah.
If you go to college and you get a degree and you don't get the job you want for that degree, you can always fall back and become a teacher.
Mhm. Like our
Okay,
history
No,
teacher last
I
year.
disagree.
At art
Our,
teachers.
our history teacher last year majored and minored in sciences, and he was a history teacher.
That's because he did what he loved. That's the
Okay,
same thing with
exactly.
my mom. My mom has a BS in horticulture, and she's a teacher because she loves it.
Our orchestra
Yeah.
teacher used to be a carpenter. Now he loves orchestra.
Yeah.
Our my
Yeah.
theater teacher used to be. He has a master's in what is it? Divine. He has a master's in divinity. He used to be a preacher, but he realized I love teaching theater and I love being around theater.
I
So
think
that's what he does.
the points that Mason and Kevin brought up are somewhat applicable, but I think that's
I
I
think
think
they're applicable
it's a
to
logical
like,
fallacy.
a degree.
small-
Because when you see
degree.
somebody, you remember the type of teachers that have
They're
so-called
passionate.
failed dreams and those who are passionate. And if you see people that are unhappy with teaching and they're like, oh, I wish I could have gone into this, but I wasn't good enough, it reflects upon them as a person. So I think you remember them more. And so it's kind of a fallacy that all teachers are just there because they couldn't work in the degree or the field that they wanted to
Does
originally.
that mean our English teacher couldn't do anything better?
I don't know. She's really good.
Exactly.
I mean,
She likes what she does.
Right.
You,
So
you
there,
can tell.
there are those people, however, they are also not those people.
Which
There
I think
are
shapes
people with
education.
failed dreams.
Is if you get bad teachers, you're not going to want to keep going higher and higher.
well, the higher up you get in terms of
Better teachers.
academics, from regular pre-AP to AP to IB, normally, as a whole, your teachers get better.
Because
It
they're
just is
trained
what
more.
it is because they like the subject more because they're gonna have to invest extra time just like we are, and they're taught better.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's one good thing about IB.
Right.
Is I think
You do get better
The
teachers.
There are
teachers
the
are
best teachers.
significantly better
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
That's true.
AP or regular classes.
Almost big.
But there's
except for in chemistry.
then there's
That's
also
it.
like
That's because she wasn't qualified.
the other cases, like I've had like really good plain teachers, like regular teachers or pre-AP or whatnot. But yeah, they do need the highest to produce the highest caliber kids. You do need high caliber teachers.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
You're not gonna pick up some hobo and be like, here, teach calculus.
Teach these kids.
So to sum up this podcast, I think the education system as a whole is pretty good, but it does need some reworking. And IB, it's a good system, but there's always room for improvement.
Everything's flawed. The point of this podcast is
Nothing is good.
nothing.
Everything in life
No.
is horrible.
Nah, things can be good, things can be great, but things can never be perfect. And if something is proclaimed to be perfect, you should read 1984 by George Orwell. Thanks for listening, guys.
Adios.